Here we are, episode 2 of the E46 build. I'm going to delete everything that I've recorded for episode 2 so far because I just had to start over again. So right now the rear differential does not line up. I can't get it bolted in. When I get the 2 bolts in the front, the one in the rear is too far away from the hole. What I finally realized is that the bushings, these aluminum bushings in the front of the subframe, are not pressed all the way in. So I'm going to try to push them in with my ball joint press and see if that'll make the rear differential go in. This side goes towards the wheel, this side goes towards the CV axle. If you've ever taken the wheel off of a BMW, you've probably been disappointed by these. They have lug bolts instead of lug nuts. Once you get all the lug bolts out, the wheel just falls off unless you use something like this. It's a threaded stud with no head on it that can hold the wheel in place while you're getting the other lug studs started, but there is a better way. This is a lug nut and stud designed for this car. So I'm going to thread these in and get rid of the original lug bolts. Okay, I'm double nutting 2 12mm nuts on here. Get it pretty snug if I use the right side of the wrench. Now I can just put my socket on the outer nut and spin it in. There's already thread locking compound on the hub side of the threads. Okay, thread them in. Once they're all in place, you can torque them to 88 foot-pounds. Now I'm ready to start assembling the rear suspension. Here's the rear upper coil spring mount. I'm going to knock it up there with a hammer, see if it'll stay in place. But first I'm going to lubricate it with some soapy water. This should give you an idea of the difference between the new springs with the screw jacks and the old spring. Here's the adjustable lower spring mount. I'm going to adjust that all the way down. There's the spring. So I did goof up a little bit here. The only way to get the control arm bolts into the subframe with the rear differential installed is to loosen the differential bolts on the front, remove the rear differential bolt, slide the diff backwards. Otherwise, you don't have enough room for this bolt or this bolt because they hit the hub flange. It's time for the CV axles. The long axle goes on the passenger side, the short one on the driver's side. Okay, I'm going to tighten the CV axle nut with a 36mm 12-point socket. Once I get the wheels on it and the car setting on the ground, I'll torque this to spec with a torque wrench and then hammer these flat to lock the nut into place. On the differential side of the rear CV axles, I'm replacing these E-Torx bolts with Allens. I'm going to upgrade these caliper slides and get rid of this rubber crap. A little bit of anti-seize on the brass bushings. snap ring to hold it in place. Okay, now the rest of the brakes can go back together with no e-brake. This slotted rotor is slightly used, but it's still well within manufacturer specifications. Next is the caliper bracket. So I'm going to put the old pads back in for now. There's a possibility I may be replacing the pads and rotors and who knows what else later. And ICs on the slide pin bolts too. The upgraded slides don't require the pad retention clips that go on the front of the caliper on the outside. Okay, I got the brake hoses clipped back in. All that's left on the rear end is the rear sway bar and sway bar links, and I'm going to hold off until I can get some upgraded parts. On the next episode, I'm going to roll the lip on the quarter panel so that these race tires fit a little bit better and work on the roll cage.